didn't realize when I was doing a little research on this that it was the fire, because of the destruction that destroyed out the then business district, that all the banks moved to LaSalle Street, and it was then that State Street became a great commercial street, which had not been prior to that, and South Michigan Avenue also became a center. So in some ways, the Chicago that we're all familiar with was an outgrowth of the destruction of the Chicago fire.
Yeah.
We think of LaSalle Street as Chicago's version of Wall Street, the banking, financial center, and that was because of the banks moving there after the fire.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when people talk about the Chicago Fire, they talk about the large statistics. 18,000 buildings destroyed, 3.5 square miles. 100,000 people homeless. But what they don't realize was that all the governmental, federal, state, county, city, all destroyed. All the records in Cook County were destroyed. Every land record. How could you prove that you owned what you owned or owed, and the bank's records were destroyed too?
I ran into this when doing research, because I was sort of the unofficial historian of the town of Cicero, and I was trying to compile some of the early records of the town. And our town goes back to 1857.
Yeah.
And I found out it's impossible to get the early records of the town of Cicero because they had all been deposited with the county clerk's office.
Sure.
And they were everything before 1871 was destroyed in the Chicago fire.
That's right.
There you go.
And so all your land records for a huge area, and all the sort of movers and shakers, etc. All the lawyers, maybe no loss there, but they were all bankers, your department stores, the downtown, the vital, it wasn't just a number of framed little houses like the O'Learys, which, by the way, the fire department saved, but it was the not only the quantity but the quality, and it also brought in a lot of people, a lot of tradespeople, a lot of architects, because they saw opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
So when something is destroyed, why it's got to be rebuilt, and and they had to go up, they didn't go out. So Chicago becomes the skyscraper city, So,
And by the way, we have some relics from that great Chicago fire.
Yeah.
And Ken has gotten one of the journals from one of the companies that was at the fire.
And fortunately, the city had Don Amici as mayor to
Exactly.
reorganize everything and lead the renewal of the city.
And he was Irish then too.
Was that before or after you invented the telephone?
I think that was before the
before the telephone.
Before you invented.
Yeah.
Well, on that happy note, folks, we're going to have to take a little break for our first break, and you're listening to Meet the Chicago Historians, our remote broadcast from the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago, 5218 South Western Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60632.
I seen a T-shirt like that on you once, Jack.
And we are broadcasting from the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago at 5218 South Western Avenue in the city of Chicago. And while our first break today, we're going to talk about a very, very good friend of mine who is Mike Besch from Besch Brothers Roofing. It's getting to that time of the year, ladies and gentlemen, where we want to make sure that the roof on your house is in very good shape, because it won't be long and we're going to be having some rain, snow, and ice, and hail and sleet and the whole 9 yards. So make sure that you don't get drip in your front room or your living room or your bedroom or in the bathroom and kitchen, family room. Give Mike a call. Mike Besch at Besch Brothers Roofing. You can call Mike at area code 630-616-1359. And Mike will come out in his little red truck, and he'll take out his ladder, get up on the roof and take a look at it, and then advise you what work you need done. So that's Besch Brothers Roofing, Mike Besch at area code 630-616-1359. And remember, you don't want that drip, 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 drip in your house, because not only will you need to replace your roof eventually, but if the plaster, your ceiling, gets wet and collapses and falls, you're going to have to get a new ceiling put in, and then have them painted and clean up the mess. So save yourself the extra problem. Call Best Brothers Roofing today. Have Mike come out, take a look at your roof, and he'll advise you what work you need to be done. Again, you're listening to Meet the Chicago Historians. Today is October the 10th, the year 2011, and we are at the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago because this is Fire Prevention Week. And right now we're going to go back to Jack and continue on with our program.
Okay, folks, back from our first break. So far, so good. And I'll tell you, just looking around at break time, if you could just see this 1910, is it? Fire truck? Yeah, 1928. Just the sight of this alone would be the worth your coming over here.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful, and it looks like it could go out and run make a run today if it had to.
It could. It
Yeah.
runs. It pumps.
Oh, it runs, pumps,
Yeah.
right?
I
Does
bet it
everything
didn't look
but-
that good when it came off the assembly line. I mean, it
Yeah.
looks beautiful.
All the detailing is done on it, and I'm sure it never looked so good.
Now, you want to know something, Jack? I took a picture of this fire truck, this engine, when it was in service in 1956. And they were backing in. Engine 4 had it in the old house at 1244 North Halsted. I was coming down the street, and I saw the house was empty. I stopped in, and here they come in, and they didn't want to block Halsted Street, so they backed in at about 25 miles an hour or so. And so the picture is slightly blurred because they're moving, and we published it in the history of Engine 4. So this fire truck was in regular service till 1957. So it was like 29 years old, you know.
It's amazing that it was. I know. Again, dealing with our fire department, we replace engines on a fairly
Yeah.
regular
Yeah.
basis. They serve a long time, but not that long. Not from
Oh, yeah.
1928 to the late 50s.
There's a story behind that. This was an old firehouse. It still had a wooden apparatus floor, and they had never replaced it for one reason or another, and it was in poor shape. In fact, when they used to wash it, they never had to dry it or anything because the water leaked through the cracks and on the wooden floor, the boards, etc. So they said, well, we can't put a modern fire truck there because it's too heavy, you know. So we'll keep running these old fire trucks, and they used it until 57. It ran, it pumped, you know. They maintained it, but it's got right-hand steering, you know. Fortunately, it's got four-wheel drive, but four-wheel brakes rather, not four-wheel drive. But
This is a plumber's delight, too. I asked Jack Connors how many knobs, how many valves there were.
Yeah, yeah.
He's going to check.
Yeah.
I've never seen so many valves, and the engineer really had something to turn on this thing. Right, Sal?
Right.
Did that company go out of business? Because it says on the display board that it was the final Fox of the era. Did they
Final
stop
Fox.
did they stop making?
No.
No, the
engines?
Final Fox in Chicago.
The last one Chicago ever
they shipped
purchased. Yeah, they went out
Seagrave
of service.
Oh, Sal, get closer to the mic.
Oh, okay. Sal, want to get in here? We have Sal Amati, who is a retired Chicago engineer, and the term engineer is the term still used by operators of engines. Goes back to the steam engine days when they had to have a license for a high-pressure boiler, so they had to be a licensed engineer. And Sal, you can... Not to put you on the spot, but maybe have some memories of tell them about your first fire truck that you were assigned to, if you want.
Okay, I started out in 1954, and we had a 1929 Seagrave combination. And that was at 29, and it was still in service until 1956.
Explain what a combination was, Sal.
Yeah.
Well, a combination was both an engine and a truck, and we followed 7 different companies as a truck, and we had our own still district as an engine. And the only confusing thing about it, when we had to run, and they sent us to follow an engine, we had to put on our truckman's belt, and if we went on the engine, we put on the spanner.
Yep.
And
I live in your district, by the way.
that's right. We were Ken Little's home guard.
Yeah, right.
And all of his kids hung out at the firehouse, too.
Yeah.
They practice on Ken's garage. Is
Yeah,
that
right. Yeah, they practice on my garage. I've had 2 fires in my garage.
I've got to pardon my ignorance, but maybe some folks out there don't know that. What do you mean when you say engine and truck? What's the difference there?
Well, an engine is the pumper, and the truck has the ladders, and you put them together, and you got a combination.
Yeah.
I don't know.
now
how
we
else-
know.
Now we know.
A
Yeah.
pumper
Remember
has
when you
the
heard it.
hose.
Yeah,
Even funny-
it pumps water, and it brings the hose.
Funny, the Spanish word for fireman is bombero, the pumper. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's where it comes from.
or for firemen in French is pompier.
Vampire.
I
That's right.
don't know why I know that.
Yeah.
what language is that in?
We had to learn that.
French.
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 Pompier. You heard of the pompier ladder, haven't you?
Yeah, and we have one back there. And by the way, in Chicago, the firemen in Spanish are called locos bomberos. Crazy.
Crazy?
Crazy firemen. Locos bomberos.
We all had to learn those little bits of knowledge after some problems here in the city. We all had a little schooling on Spanish and different languages.
You know what else in the old days where you had a predominantly Polish neighborhood or a predominantly German neighborhood, the officers or the battalion chief was either, Polish or German. Where I grew up, it was German. All the early battalion chiefs all could speak German,
And
What-
they
what did
and
they
they
do?
wanted German guys
They
on their
wanted German,
company.
exactly.
Or the Polish, yeah.
Yeah.
What did they do with Engine 8? Chinatown.
What did you say? What was your question? What?
Who was the captain or
Oh.
commander or the chief
Oh.
at Chinatown?
Oh, yeah, I don't think, are you saying?
I think it was Jimmy Long.
Yeah.
For how long?
For how long? You know what's interesting about that? It just turns out Engine 8's at Chinatown. They just celebrate 150th anniversary Friday. 8 in Chinese is a lucky number, so they have Engine 8, in Chinese on the rig and also on the apparatus doors, and that means something to the Chinese, And it does. And by the way, they do not have too many fires down there. They're very clean, very orderly people,
Well, if everybody was like the Chinese, I wouldn't have had a job, I don't think. That's the police department, folks.
Police department.
And speaking of the police department, recently we were relating a story about being a rookie and first week on the job. I was talking to John, and I said, yeah, Sunday night, we're on what they call the night power shift of my power watch, 6 to 2:30, 6:30 to 2, whatever it was. Huh? Anyway, it was overlapping, and I wound up by myself. Worked at 48th and Wabash, the old 2nd District station. That was in January of '68. So the lieutenant has me warm all the cars, make sure they're all warmed up, they don't freeze. There was a deep freeze. We used to get those after the first of the year. So he says, well, I got to go out. Well, I was out, and whatever I did here and there. So long about, must have been 12:31, burglar alarm at this little old pawn shop right next to 47th and the L there, east of Indiana. Well, we get over there, nobody's around, whatever. Lo and behold, 20 minutes later, the place is ablaze. I don't know how that happened. So anyway, I was talking about I want an intersection traffic control right at 47th Indiana. Well, you get the car, you pull the car at the intersection, you got we had the Cherry light on going around. People still want to go drive east. Go over the hole. I see the fire engines down there. I see the holes, I see the car. But anyway, I mentioned that to John and says, I was there. He was up with the wagon with the coffee and donuts. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thanks for the coffee, John.
Yeah, right.
And the donuts. Got me addicted to them. Funny how things work out like that, though.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a question. We're talking about trucks and engines. Do we have any such thing as a hook and ladder anymore?
No,
Is there?
no. Got rid of them. Who was the last one? Truck
I don't know, truck 54, by that you mean a tractor trailer looking like.
You're talking about a tiller,
With a tiller, yeah.
I guess.
a hook,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's sort of an obsolete term. In Chicago, they're simply called trucks.